Hello everyone, today we learn about Software Testing Unit 5. Unit 5. Object-Oriented Testing. 1. Object-Oriented Testing. 2. User Interface Testing. 3. Procedural Testing versus Object-Oriented Testing. 4. Reusability Feature Explained. 5. Database Testing. 6. Website Testing. Object-Oriented Testing. Software typically undergoes many levels of testing, from unit testing to system or acceptance testing. Typically, in unit testing, small units, or modules of the software, are tested separately with a focus on testing the code of that module. In higher order testing, e.g., acceptance testing, the entire system or a subsystem is tested with a focus on testing the functionality or external behavior of the system. As information systems are becoming more complex, the object-oriented paradigm is gaining popularity because of its benefits in analysis, design, and coding. Conventional testing methods cannot be applied for testing classes because of problems involved in testing classes, abstract classes, inheritance, dynamic binding, message passing, polymorphism, concurrency, etc. Testing classes is a fundamentally different issue than testing functions. A function or a procedure has a clearly defined input-output behavior, while a class does not have an input-output behavior specification. We can test a method of a class using approaches for testing functions, but we cannot test the class using these approaches. Data dependencies between variables, calling dependencies between modules, functional dependencies between a module and the variable it computes, definitional dependencies between a variable and its types. But in object-oriented systems, there are the following additional dependencies: class-to-class dependencies, class-to-method dependencies, class-to-message dependencies, class-to-variable dependencies, method-to-variable dependencies, method-to-message dependencies, method-to-method dependencies. 2. User interface testing. User interface (UI) testing is a software testing process that verifies that an application's user interface functions as expected. Purpose UI testing ensures that an application's visual and structural aspects work as expected, and that the user experience meets standards. What's tested? UI testing covers a range of features, including functionality, visual design, responsiveness, performance, usability, accessibility, and compliance. What's tested? UI testing covers a range of features, including functionality, visual design, responsiveness, performance, usability, accessibility, and compliance. How it's done? UI testing is usually performed using test cases that manipulate the app's views and controls. Testers may also use exploratory testing, where they interact with the application without a script to follow. How it's done? UI testing is usually performed using test cases that manipulate the app's views and controls. Testers may also use exploratory testing, where they interact with the application without a script to follow. What's tested? For UI testing verifies that the application's components, such as icons, radio buttons, text boxes, toolbars, color, fonts, checkboxes, windows, and menus, function properly. What's tested? For UI testing verifies that the application's components, such as icons, radio buttons, text boxes, toolbars, color, fonts, checkboxes, windows, and menus, function properly. When it's done? UI testing is often performed by third-party companies, rather than developers or end users. When it's done? UI testing is often performed by third-party companies, rather than developers or end users. Here are some steps for conducting UI testing. 1. Define test objectives. 2. Create test cases. 3. Set up the testing environment. 4. Execute tests. 5. Validate UI elements. 6. Record and report issues. Define test objectives. Create test cases. Set up the testing environment. Execute tests. Validate UI elements. Record and report issues. Here the basic difference are there. 3. Procedural testing versus object-oriented testing. 5. 4. Reusability feature explained. Reusability is a feature in software engineering and computer science that allows developers to use existing code, components, designs, documentation, and test suites in new software products. This saves time and effort, and promotes consistency and standardization. Here are some ways reusability can be applied. Code reuse. Developers can use existing code in new software products, instead of starting from scratch each time. This can lead to faster and more consistent development. Service reusability. This design principle creates services that can be reused across a business. These services are designed so that their solution logic, independent of any particular business process or technology. Requirements. Reusability. Well-written requirements that meet the necessary conditions for reuse can save time and money on future projects. Inheritance. In object-oriented programming, inheritance is a feature that indicates code reusability. 5. Database testing. Database testing is a process that evaluates the performance, reliability, and accuracy of a database system. The goal of database testing is to ensure that the data stored in the database is consistent, valid, and can be manipulated for business needs. Some things to check during database testing include table names, column types, null values, default values, and rule definitions. Some types of database testing include data validation testing. Verifies that the data entered into the database meets the specified criteria. Data validation testing verifies that the data entered into the database meets the specified criteria. Schema testing ensures that the database structure is correctly defined and matches the expected design. Schema testing ensures that the database structure is correctly defined and matches the expected design. Some tools used for database testing include Oracle SQL Developer, Orion, NoSQL Unit, and TSQLT. While there is no required degree or certification for a database testing role, formal education and training in a related field can be an advantage. A strong understanding of SQL syntax and commands is also essential. Here are some type of software database testing. Website testing. Website testing is a process that checks a website for issues and defects across various devices. It includes a number of testing, such as functional testing, verifies that the application works as intended by comparing the output of each function to the corresponding requirement. Cross-browser testing compares how a website behaves in different browsers to ensure that it provides an optimal user experience. Interface testing determines if two different software systems are communicating effectively. UI testing checks that the user interface works as intended and is visually appealing. User testing observes users in real-world scenarios to identify and resolve usability issues. Thank you for watching this video and notes. Liye